So this is like the uh, basic blocking that you would do for any kind of animal, and just knowing where the vertebrae is, like the action of the vertebrae. Okay, let me say this over again just to make sure it's clear. Like when you see an animal from life, right? So from the side view, you want to start just with a tube, like this, and you break it down to 3, right? And then the rib cage in proportion is really important here, because then by looking at pictures already, you kind of just remember the proportions of the animal. But this is how I just usually try to break it down into like a general, general proportion breakdown, like this. And then the rib cage right here, and then the pelvis right here. And then the hind legs here, and then the front legs here. Remembering that this is where the elbow is, and remember that this is where your knee is going to be, because most people think the knee is over here or something. I mean, the common mistake people make are not knowing exactly where the knee is and where the pelvis actually attaches to where the hip is. And you always have to remember that they're kind of like tiptoeing. So this is the heel. So the neck just attaches here, and so basic animal shape. I don't know if that's clear. Just a simple breakdown for let's say it's an elephant. An elephant, so you put your block to the basic proportion of the elephant, right? And then he's like thicker. So and you break it down to 3, and you have your rib cage, and you just see the contour of how the elephant's back goes up. Then after you kind of get a blocking of your rib cage, then you fill in the masses, right? So his gut will be here, and then with elephants, their legs go straight down more. So, but their knee will still be here from where their hind leg touched the pelvis. I think the proportion of where their heel is not as high as the dog's up here. It's actually kind of lower right there. And definitely having reference is really important.
How about that all apply to like birds and different types of fowl or fish, for example?
Which one? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Like how would you do these proportions for like a bird or a fish?
Okay, for birds, birds have. I guess if you know your biology pretty well, which it's good to study up on that and know which different types of animals, their classes, I guess you could say. So birds have their own class, and then there's mammals, and then reptilia, and amphibians, right? But all of them kind of share the same kind of break it down into 3. But the only difference is the visual components, the proportions, controlling that is what you have to pay attention to. So let's say a bat, again, if you start with the torso, you break it down to 3 again, but the bat's pelvis is going to be about this wide. I'm not exactly sure. I don't really remember. I should have reference open right now so I could break it down more clearly. But this is just a generic, because the question is how do you have it almost like a generic skeleton that you could use when you draw from life, right? That's kind of what the question was.
Basically, yeah. Like basically your advice for drawing animals from life,
Yeah, so I would think of it this way. It helps me easier to break it down to 3 like this. Even if it's a head, you also still break it down to 3, because then the eye goes here. Here's where the long part of the nose is, and then here's the nose and the muzzle area. So it's still like broken down to 3. It's not the same size necessarily. It could be bigger like this, and then depending where you want the eye to go, this is kind of like creature design already. You're like, depending where, you could put the eye here, or even more in the front here. But this breakdown will help you break down the animals you look at, more. So if you have a picture of like a turtle, you put a tracing paper over that turtle and try to study where you could break down that shape, where the muzzle is, where the skull area is. Hold on a second. Let me just
Okay, that's good.
let me just get a turtle picture real quick. I just wanted to show how we could do this. Okay, this just you guys like study this stuff just so it's easier to find your shortcuts to do this. So like this one, I would. Sorry, let me make it cleaner. So it's still a square, and now just getting where the perspective is of the square like this, and then you break this down. How does this break down? Oh, sorry guys. Okay, hold on a second. I'm so sorry, guys. Hold on.
We apologize for that interruption while we wait for Anthony. Again, for you guys who are in attendance, you can enter questions right now. We have about 2 more that we just added there. But anyone who's online can ask questions at the moment, so that'll be great.
Sorry guys. I just took care of that real quick. Anyway, so I practice by breaking down the shape like this, and this eye is actually in the front of that skull. So, but still breaking down the skeleton kind of like this, and it's just easier to understand. So when you go out to life, to drawing from life, when you see a turtle, you could just break it down that way. But anyway, sorry for for the bats. I just want to get this out real quick. For the bats, and birds, when you do the arms, the bone structure would go like this, and it would be these fingers that become like the bat wing area. So that's like the basic breakdown for that. And I think their feet are backwards like this. So knuckles here. So you could relate it to like just human anatomy. And if you think of it that way, like here's the elbow, and here are the fingers, shoulder, then sometimes it makes sense faster that way. I don't know, is that helpful?
I think that's more than helpful, actually. You did quite a bit there. And actually, we have another question here from Steve. Steve says, "Hi, Anthony. Do you have any advice for a concept artist who is starting out doing freelance? Thanks."
Starting out doing freelance. Well, first off, it's good to have a website so you're exposed to the internet, so it's easy for people to access your work. And blog is also good, so people see your process of how you create stuff, and you could also kind of show how fast you do stuff there by telling them how much time you spent on it. And another thing would be to just join forums and get your stuff out there so it's more exposed to just a lot of people surfing through the internet. And I would get some hits while I was working at Offset. As long as I had my blog up, I would get emails just asking if I could do like little concept work here or there, and sometimes bigger jobs that I can't go to. But I think the internet is a really powerful tool for that. And of course, it's also good to look at, it depends if you want to go to a game or film. Games, most game companies have their websites, and their job openings and all this stuff that you could send stuff in, and you could specify an objective in your resume that you're just interested in freelance work. Most game companies, I think, do freelance work, so and even mostly for film, it is a freelance gig because every like 3-4 months, the project's over and then you have to move on. And another good way to also try to look for opportunity is like the Hollywood Reporter.